All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Final Boy Status. For this episode, I will be your host, Lance and Lappin, and I am joined with the two esteemed gentlemen, Luke Haueter.
Howdy, howdy. Let's get rowdy.
Oh, frick yeah. And Adam Bone.
Hey everyone, I am here and I have a plate of lasagna.
Show
And-
lasagna. Get the lasagna on camera.
Show us the
Don't-
lasagna. We need that sexy lasagna on camera.
It'll
me the
happen.
sauce.
I don't want us to blow the load too quick here, but it's
Show me
here.
the sauce. Show me the cheese.
It's here,
Eat
and I
it.
will be eating
Eat
it.
it.
And don't be offended. And sorry if there's chewing noises, but I'll try to keep it away. But yeah, so because of that, I'm pretty happy to be here, but other reasons too.
Of course.
If he had no lasagna, he'd be really bummed that we were doing this.
Yeah. I'd be pretty bummed.
I'd be like 50% energy than I am now, so
Dang.
which
Be
isn't
like-
bad. It's like
Yeah.
a normal day.
Helps that I shotgunned a Red Bull right before this and eating a plate of lasagna. That'll keep my spirits up.
Oh, yeah. Got to keep that fighting spirit up. Well, anyway, guys, we are coming at you with a very special episode. We're covering a movie that has just fairly recently hit theaters, the newest addition into the Halloween franchise, Halloween Kills. So,
My favorite part of the movie was when Michael Myers looked directly at the camera and said, "It's time to Halloween kill." That's
And
stolen
then-
from a tweet I saw earlier. I feel bad. I shouldn't have said that. That was a tweet that made me laugh really hard.
nice.
I'll have to see if I can find who posted that and give them credit.
Heck yeah. Oh, man.
I think
Well,
it was shoot. Yeah. Forget the joke I was about to make. Just forget it.
oh, Adam.
It's just
That's
gone.
okay.
It's gone.
Oh, it's okay,
I'm sorry,
buddy.
buddy.
Sorry, dude.
I
you
got
wanna-
distracted.
Do you want to talk about it?
We can take it again.
Okay, I
Okay.
got it. Sorry. I'm just gonna say this before I forget. It was at Insane Letterbox on Twitter tweeted the weirdest, most out of place part of Halloween Kills was when Michael Myers looked right at the camera and said, "It's time to Halloween kill."
Oh, what a legend.
I'm gonna give credit before I forget. Insane Letterboxed on Twitter.
Nice.
Same letterbox, you better be a fan, or else
Or else.
better get something out of this.
Or else.
Or else it's time to Halloween kill.
Kill.
We're gonna Halloween kill you.
Whoa. Oh, shoot.
Better
So,
appreciate the shout out. Sorry.
Adam, come on, bro. You got the big lasagna. You got the big boy pants on. You
I
think you're
know.
taking over this episode?
I know. I keep cutting in.
Nah, you're good, man. You're good. I'm just a shy guy anyway. But anywho, so the fingies they're getting me good.
Just so shy. I'm just so shy. Every time I want to go out with a girl, it doesn't work because I'm so shy. I'm so shy I can't go out with girls.
Well, I tell you what's going to help is this podcast. And what this podcast is Final Boy Status. We're all about seeing how we can survive horror movies, you know? It's very similar to when you're with your friends, you're chilling, you're like, hey, we should have done this, or I would have done this differently. That's basically what we're about over here at Final Boy Status. So to begin the episode, usually we like to just kind of give our general impressions and opinions of the movie, and then just kind of what we thought of it on a spookiness level. So why don't we start with our just overall opinion of the movie? Again, rated out of 13. So Adam, why don't we kick it over to you? What did you think of Halloween Kills out of 13?
And as far as the Halloween movies we've been covering this season, they were technically jointly chosen by all three of us.
True.
But we've each taken turns like talking about each movie, and it's actually Adam's turn to talk a bit about the movie and why he was excited to do it. Maybe give us a bit of a rundown of what's in the movie. I think by now everybody knows what's going to happen in a Halloween movie.
Yeah.
But
Especially this one. You'll probably predict the formula pretty well. But yeah, this is the second installment of the reboot sequel Halloween that happened in 2018, and this is the second in a trilogy. So this is a direct and instant continuation of the story of that first Halloween. So we don't really we're going to talk about spoilers. So if you haven't seen the first Halloween, check out that before watching this. Also, if you haven't seen Halloween Kills, check that out before watching this, because it's a very spoiler heavy podcast in nature.
We're going to talk about whatever we want, baby.
We're following Laurie Strode. They just burnt down the house. Michael Myers was in the basement. They're like, he's dead. We did it. And then some firemen go and they're like, a burning down house. This is our thing. We got to do this. They go, they accidentally save Michael Myers, and he very intentionally murders all of them. And then we have a movie where he's on the loose and he's killing people. And that's about as simple as the movie is. So that's a little rundown of it. And this is a movie that came out, I guess we're not super on top of it. It came out last week or the week before. So very recently, which is something we don't do super often on this podcast. So it's exciting to talk about a movie that was in theaters. So
it is still in theaters at the time of the release of this podcast. So,
hey, still can check it out.
Check it out. See what's what.
But and then your thoughts, opinions, and a rating out of 13.
Right. So I liked this movie a lot, actually. I think I'll start with the positives. Really simple, as I stated before. And at first I was like, man, this is pretty simple. But it ended up being really fun to not really have all these stories or these themes, just to know that basically what you're going to watch from beginning to end is Michael Myers doing what he does best. There's something nice about that. There's something kind of pleasing about that. A lot of the kills were really crazy and fun. I enjoyed the acting was good, but I'm trying to think. There's another positive I was going to say. I think more than I think I like this one. Oh, shoot. I was going to check the rating I did for the last Halloween movie, because I like this one about a little bit more than the first Halloween in 2018, because I feel like there's a lot of storylines in that last one that were there and they were characters and you got to know them, and then it just kind of didn't go anywhere. And there's a lot less of this, even though it did introduce characters that it's just introducing for them to die. It's a little less of a red herring where you think, oh, this is going to go somewhere, and it kind of doesn't. So I liked it a little bit more. To go to my negatives, I have two main ones. The first one is kind of goes along with what I liked about it. It's kind of the other side of the coin. It was a lot more simple, which made it a little bit more palatable, made it funner, made it kind of more like the original. However, what that did too was it was very simple, and it really suffered from, I don't know if you want to call it sequelitis, but more like middle movie-itis, where there's a beginning and there's an end, and this is neither. At the beginning of this movie, or by the end of this movie, Michael Myers is gonna survive, and Laurie Strode is gonna survive, and everyone else that's in the movie, you're just like, they're all gonna die. So you can predict what's gonna happen with this movie. And the movie, even though at the end there was definitely one surprise that happened at the very, very end, where I was like, I did not think they would do that, which was good. Other than that, most everybody ends the movie the same place they started the movie. There wasn't a whole lot of progression. There wasn't a whole lot of movement. There wasn't a lot for this movie to prove that it had a reason to exist. As far as the storyline is concerned, I did like the kills, and I liked that it was simple and it was fun to watch. But yeah, as far as where the characters are, it's kind of like, oh, well, they're in the same places they were when the last movie ended. And I don't think that's that big of a deal. And I'm not going to dock it too bad for that, because I did like the simplicity. But the second main thing was something that's going to be extremely subjective, because I could see this going a lot of different ways, and I totally understood if someone disagreed with me. But for me, this movie was very brutal in its kills, and some kills, it lent itself really well to where you're like, oh, that was super brutal and creative, and I loved it. And some kills, it was over the top brutal and was just not super fun for me to watch. I think especially there was a couple kills I could think of, but I'll point out one of the first ones where it's like the elderly couple and she's got the drone. And that, for some reason, that kill like was so hard to watch because it happened and it just kept going and Michael kept getting more brutal and they had to watch each other as they died. And it was like, man, that wasn't like fun anymore. That was kind of like gross. I think there was a couple kills that happened that were that way. And not that I'm opposed to really brutal violence. I think there are some movies that use it to be impactful and to leave it with you. We talked before the podcast started about some Ari Aster movies. He's really good at making these brutalizations that impact you and push the story forward and make you really feel for the characters. But these ones seemed pretty unnecessary. And by the end, because every single one is so brutal, there's less of an impact. There's less of a reason for it to be there. And it was just not very fun to watch. So those are the two big negatives I'm going to give it. Again, I really wish I would have known my rating for the first one because I want to give it something pretty similar. I don't remember what it was. I'm going to give it a 7.5 in quality. Still really fun, but I don't know. I think because of the brutal killings that were just too much for me personally, it's not going to have a whole lot of rewatchability because of it. And I think I have to mark it down a lot for that. So those are my thoughts.
Very nice, very nice. And then Luke, what are some of your thoughts and what's your rating?
I'm going to echo Adam in a lot of ways. I feel like this happens a lot, but this is a very simplified formula, which I didn't hate. I liked that it was leaner, it was meaner, it knew what it was there to do, which was kill. There were some things I really enjoyed about this movie from like a thematic standpoint, which is I really like that we finally had said directly in a movie, it's not about Laurie. Because I think these movies get really caught up in the connection between Michael and Laurie. And even the last one was really thematically resonant that they are connected. But it made a point of saying like the connection is not something he feels with her. It's something that everybody else is kind of putting on them, which I think was really strong in the last one. This movie goes so far as to directly say he doesn't care about you. Which I thought was important for the series and also just like what a character moment for Jamie Lee Curtis to be hit over the head with this fact that her trauma was for nothing. Like he meant nothing to her and it all just happened as an act of randomness. Like that's much harder to grapple with than the feeling that somebody's coming for you. So I think I really liked that it did that. It was the first movie that felt thematically resonant with the 1978 original because it basically straight up said, because it said it was never about you. I like that it was divorced from some of the some things that felt contrived in the 2018 one, like Zartane and that whole twist, like felt really contrived and it was just a plot mechanic. This movie was able to just kind of like, it just managed to completely like wipe the slate clean. There's no silly plot twists. There's no contrivances to get Laurie and Michael in the same place. I really like what this movie had to say about like mass hysteria and the way people can get swept up in these, the way people can unfairly get caught up in like public scrutiny or public attack or this, that, and the other. I thought that was something really powerful to talk about and was really interesting to explore through the Tommy Doyle character. What I will say is this movie does fall into a couple things. Like Adam said, it's a middle child, like, and unfortunately, I don't feel like the stakes are raised during the movie properly to justify this movie existing. Like, for instance, you think of the Two Towers. Like, the Two Towers is so perfectly placed in that trilogy as the movie that ups the stakes and makes it clear how screwed, like, like how dark things are right now going into that final Lord of the Rings movie. When you talk from a writing standpoint, the middle of a story should always be the darkest moment where the entire conflict is turned on its head. I think the most like perfect middle of the story moment I could talk about is in Back to the Future, where he looks at the photograph and realizes that people are fading from existence. And now the conflict is turned on its head, where not only does he have to get back to his own time, he has to get his parents back together so he will continue to exist. It literally raises the stakes, reshifts the entire focus of where the story is going. A middle movie in a trilogy really has to do that. It absolutely has to do that. I don't think this movie did. I think that's my biggest issue with it. I like that David Gordon Green and Danny McBride clearly understand Michael Myers, which I love. I love what they do with him, but it didn't raise the stakes in a meaningful way. 2, it fell into a trap that the original Halloween 2 from way back in the day fell into, which is they put Laurie Strode in the hospital and she's just kind of sidelined. You don't get enough of Laurie Strode. And the strongest parts of 2018 were her and Michael just duking it out. So to have her completely sidelined and never even confront Michael at any point during this movie was not much fun. I mean, but yeah, there's a lot to like. It's much more brutal. It's much gorier. It's a lean, mean fighting machine. Great performances, top to bottom. And you know what? It did manage to surprise me in places. Even again, we're getting into spoilers, but to have Hawkins show up early on in the movie, and you're convinced he's like dead. And to have him show up and be a survivor was like a great twist that I did not see coming, but I was very pleasantly surprised. There was a nostalgia factor that was satisfied for me in having the flashback with Thomas Mann, who's a great actor. We get a flashback with him, and we actually get to see Loomis try to kill Michael Myers and him stop him. We get more context to Hawkins' relationship with Michael that led to 2018, where he wants to kill him. I think it's a really solid sequel, and if you're going in for the body count, you will be satisfied. It trips up in a couple places. I would say, especially at the end, it trips up because David Gordon Green and Danny McBride have clearly understood Michael so well. It's frustrating to have an ending where it's like, he has limitless power, we can never kill him. Like, for that to kind of be the ending of this movie was such a bummer, because it's antithetical to what the character of Michael Myers originally was. And what was so scary about him is that he really was like anybody. Like, this could be anybody could choose to walk into your house and kill you. And I understand they needed to keep him as an antagonist moving forward. I understand why they did it, but yeah, I didn't like a weird ending that's like, he has superpowers. Like, that was, I didn't care for that. So I think this movie has a lot going for it. This movie has a lot going against it. Even something as simple as the beginning, which is the firefighters accidentally breaking him out of the house. Some people are going to hate it. I thought it was fine. I honestly think the simplest solution to a problem in a film is actually usually what the audience will like best. You know, like in Dr. Sleep, you have a character that needs to show up and have conversations with a different character, but in the universe, that character's canonically dead. Just have his ghost show up and talk to him. That's totally fine. That's like the easiest answer you could think of, and it works great in the movie. But I think in this case, the simplest answers probably pissed some people off. And so it's going to be a divisive movie. Some people are going to love it. Some people are going to hate it. For my money, I had a really good time with it. I think it's about on par with the 2018. I think the issues I had with 2018 and the issues I have with this put the movies at about the same level for me. Don't remember what I rated 2018, so I'm just gonna gut feeling. Man. I'm just gonna gut feeling put this one at a 7.5. Had a really fun time. Loved watching it. Will watch it again. But yeah, not a perfect movie. There was some stuff that really threw me. What about yourself, Lanton? Rating out of 13, where would you put this?
Yeah, for sure. Let me see if I can add anything new. I think I know you guys are too good. You're too good. Ditto. And that's all I have to say.
Whoever goes last is so cursed on this
I know. It's
podcast
always the
every
worst.
single time.
It's so true. But yeah, I think something that I really enjoyed about the movie is expanding a little bit more about the effects that the killings have had on the community of Haddonfield. I thought was a really cool thing to explore and to kind of, introduce us to new characters and bring back old characters and just kind of, look at the more community aspect of the town. I will say, yeah, there are some kills where I'm like that. You kind of jumped the shark on that one, in my opinion. But and I feel like my biggest complaint with this movie is that it definitely feels like it got made to get to the next one in some parts where it's like, okay, let's I guess we'll just move on with that. But yeah, overall, I did have a good time. It definitely lives up to the name, Halloween Kills. Lots of gore, lots of pretty sweet and pretty spectacular kills in there. So yeah, I think I probably gave the first one like a 7.5. So I'll match this, let's say 7.3. I didn't like it as much, but it's still not like it was that, not that it was that less in my opinion. So I'll give it a 7.3 out of 13. All righty. So now that we've kind of given our little overview of the movie and our general opinions, usually we like to get into the killer or the antagonist and just kind of talk about strengths, weaknesses, maybe decisions that the killer made, maybe decisions the killer could have made better. So why don't we kind of open it up for that? What were some things that stood out for you when we look at Mikey Myers once again?
Oh boy, the old Michael Myers. I'm saying like he's entering the ring. Well, I mean, the first thing we got to get out of the way is motivation wise, this movie is probably the most coherent any Halloween movie has been about his motivations, which is at the end of the day, he's just going back home. He almost like an animal. He goes out, he kills to fulfill a need, a function. He comes back home. And I think that's something that I found really valuable. It was just a new layer of understanding for the character of like, oh, you know what? If you stay out of his way, he does not give a shit about you. And that gives you a lot of armor. The people who are most screwed are just the people who keep directly putting themselves in his path. You know what I mean? In this case, it's a lot of the people in town that are actively trying to hunt him down are literally putting themselves in his path. And so I think that's one of the more unique parts of this movie is we see a very public outrage against Michael Myers. And for me, it's like, oh, Michael Myers is loose and killing people. Okay, well, I'm skipping town, or I'm like remaining in my house, locked up nice and tight. Like I'm not taken to the streets to track him down. So I think that in terms of Michael Myers, this is the most coherent I've felt about understanding him, is just like he takes life to take life. If you're not in his way, he doesn't care. So just do your best to stay out of his way kind of feeling.
I agree with that. Another kind of big thing that Luke mentioned in his quality discussion was that, I think Michael Myers has always been superhuman, meaning that he can take a lot more than most humans can with all the gunshots at the end of the original. But this one really just dials it up to the next point where we see the dude get fucking wrecked and we see him get beat up by a mob. And then he just kind of like lays there for a second, gets up and John Wicks all of them. And that was something that we've never seen. Well, I haven't seen most of the Halloween movies except for the original, but in my viewing, I've never seen Michael Myers just take out a crowd like that. And it showed, whether that was a good thing for them to do in the character of Michael Myers or not, it did show that, yeah, this guy is, even if you have a gun, even if you have a crowd of people, you're still going to die. So it makes him a lot more superhuman than I think in the previous movie or in the original.
Yeah, I feel like all of my experiences with the Halloween franchise is he's a one-on-one killer.
Yeah.
You know, he's a night stalker. He follows you, he waits till you're alone, he goes for the kill. That's sort of been his MO in every movie up until now, with the exception of 2018, where like there's that really great one take where he just walks through the neighborhood in and out of houses, killing as he goes. And I will say this movie at least is like consistent with itself in that, like, the first thing we do is we see him just brutally murder an entire group of firemen. That's the first thing that he does in this movie. So when you get to the end where he's attacked by a whole group of people and somehow kills all of them, you're like, well, at least the movie's consistent with itself, I guess. Yeah. But I definitely think that, like, that is something that's never happened in the Halloween franchise until now, which is like, you've never seen him take on a group like this. And like I said, in some ways he's coming more into focus and you have a better understanding of maybe him psychologically, but now there is sort of a weird thing of like his physical prowess is more abstract than it's ever been. Like, you know, I don't think we ever said it in previous videos, but it's entirely possible in a previous video we could have plotted like, let's get a posse together. No way he can take everybody at once. He can apparently take as many people as you throw at him. I mean, unless it's like that flashback to 78, they have an entire police force literally like pointing guns directly at his face. That's what finally makes him stop. So yeah, it's like, it's much more ambiguous now, where it's like the raw like physical power of this man is getting harder and harder to figure out like how it works,
what the limitations are.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like the Superman problem, right? Which is like every filmmaker, every writer, any person who tells a Superman story, they're stuck with the unenviable task of just trying to get a fix on like what is hard for Superman to do. Mm-hmm. And that's like, who knows, you know? And so like Michael Myers is now in like that superhuman category where you have to tell a story about him. You have to be asking that question, like, what is hard for Michael Myers? What pushes him to his limits? And if this movie pushes him to his limits, we don't know, because he just gets through everything more or less fine.
Within that line of thought, it's like, yeah, what is his kryptonite? I don't know. We've seen maybe getting run over by a car has worked on a couple occasions, or at least one I could think of.
Although these movies make it seem like getting run over by a car is nothing, because friggin' Frank Hawkins gets stabbed in the neck, run over by his own truck, and in this movie he's like, let me here. Like,
okay, I'm good, guys.
Plug it up, we're good. So
I'm fine.
So in the Halloweeniverse, getting hit by a car doesn't mean much. So I guess Ben Tramer is just a little
unless
bitch.
You're Ben Tramer.
Got a glass jaw, Ben Tramer. Can't carry the fight, bro.
But yeah, there's really not a whole lot.
Ain't gonna get with Jamie Lee Curtis if you're getting taken out by a car. No,
bro. That's day one stuff, man. But yeah, that just it just makes the conversation hard of like, what is the weakness of this guy? I thought like originally before he like went all Winter Soldier on the crowd of people, when like she grabbed the mask, I'm like, oh, okay, that was a pretty good idea. You take the mask and then you get them with a bunch of people. Doesn't matter. Never mind. They got guns. Don't matter. They got logs. Don't matter.
I mean, I think one thing I think I might point out is just you've kind of have this sense through all the movies that he's got an okay threshold to pain, where it's like he'll take the hit, he has to take a second to like assimilate the hit, but then he'll come back. I mean, that was our complaint about the original, is Laurie Strode hits him like 6 different times, 6 different ways. And it always puts him down for a second, but he always gets back up. And we're like, come on, girl, double tap. So it's like, there is something new in this movie where like, it's like he's getting used to it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
the hits are more brutal in this movie they've ever been, but at the same time, he's recovering faster than he's ever recovered. And I mean, they kind of say it in like that monologue at the end, like every time he kills, he grows in power or whatever bullshit that was. So like clear there does seem to be something to that where it's like, the more you put him through, like the more he's capable of taking, you know, the whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger Kelly Clarkson thing seems to be true for MM over here, because just every time he gets stabbed and it doesn't put him down for good, he's able to take like 2 stabs the next go around. So I think talking about him, I feel like the new strategy going forward is like, whatever you do, it has to drop him round 1 or he's going to come back twice as tough the next round. I feel like that seems to be in line with his character in this timeline and this iteration of the Halloween story.
I'm just waiting for the next movie for somebody to shoot him in the face point blank with a shotgun and him just headless, half of his head just coming after you.
It's the mask back on, but you can tell there's like no face behind it.
I did think it was pretty cool. Like when I did think it was cool in the fight with the crowd when he puts the mask back on and you got the Bane theme. It's like, I don't know what's going to happen. I think he's going to lose, but the music says otherwise. So let's see what happens.
And it's a fake out because he loses for like a second. Karen like runs away to go find her daughter. And then he's like, all right, fake out's done. Like,
playtime's over, chumps.
It's like in the movie Upgrade when the friggin' microchip goes, should I take over? And he's like, yeah, take over. And it goes from like 0 to 100, you know? This was crazy, man. This movie was nuts.
Yeah.
This isn't like a physical weakness, but a weakness that we've kind of already brought up in a different context, but his motivation is realized in this movie that I don't know if motivation, but just a pattern of Michael Myers is discovered where it's like he goes back home, he sticks around home base, he's probably going to be within 10 miles radius of this place. And I think realizing that, even though it doesn't at the end of the day work out because he's Superman, that was a very good advantage that the victims had on him in this movie. And so that was a weakness that we saw. It wasn't physical, but it was something.
The third movie in this trilogy is him going back to the farm where he was raised, finding a ship buried underneath the barn and realizing he is the second last son of Krypton. Opens up the gray jumpsuit and it's just the Superman logo.
Oh my gosh. Henry Cavill has to show up just to put him down. And even then, it's
General Zod style.
But then they have a moment where they're like, Martha?
Yeah.
He's like, did you say Martha?
Why did you say that name? His first words.
Michael's like, did you say Martha? And they're like, you can talk. And he's like, I've talked the whole time, bitch. Nobody was listening.
Nobody listens to Michael Myers.
I host a podcast. Haven't you listened?
Flank him and spank him. That's all I have to say.
Oh, man. In terms of what's going on with him, like his motivation, I mean, there's kind of like one thing you can always count on with Michael Myers in these movies, and that's he'll always go back to Haddonfield.
Yep.
And so I feel like there's kind of just this thing there of like, don't live in Haddonfield. Not to be this guy, but like 2021 at this point, like even if your job requires you to live, let's say you have a job that requires you to live in like a specific area, I guess just don't live in that specific town. live like a couple towns over. If you are, it's 2021. Most jobs are being done remote now. Like you don't have to live in Illinois at all. Don't live in Illinois at all. I'm sure. I'm sure Michigan's basically the same. Look, I'll get some hate for saying this, but let's be honest. There are a couple states out there that are pretty interchangeable with one another. North and South Dakota, like, there's no difference. You could flip them on a map and I wouldn't notice. Even if South Dakota was, in terms of directions, on a map above North Dakota, I would still look at the map and be like, that's correct.
Moral of the story, go to Fargo.
Adam, weigh in.
I humbly disagree. That is all.
Adam lived in one of the Dakotas, so I knew if I made fun of him, it would strike.
He's saying this to trigger me, but it won't happen.
Oh,
I just want you to go.
Therapist just said to breathe it in and to have a calm
Bottle it
disposition
up.
about everything.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
just
nice,
bottle
yeah.
it up.
Just push it down.
Just
Shake up the bottle and then squeeze it shut, and everything should be fine.
Everything will settle eventually.
Oh shit!
Yeah, it'll settle.
Man, that's funny.
Yeah, I do feel we Lansing kind of hit on something, which is like he feels a great attachment to his mask, which we've seen in all three movies. I feel like we saw it most clearly in 2018, where like what the podcasters show him, like, hey, we have your mask. And when he happens to see them in the graveyard at Judith's grave, he's like, I'm going to get my mask. And he goes on a whole like side quest killing spree to get his mask back. And then in this one, Karen does use it at some point to draw him out into the open. So in terms of what could make him deviate from his usual behavior, the mask could do it. Other than that, I feel like I said, it's kind of weird because the dude's friggin' Superman, but psychologically, I guess we're a little more tuned in. He has a pattern. He has a routine. There are ways you can make him break from that routine. Hard to know what to say outside of that.
Here's something that is noticeable in all movies. In this one, I especially thought about it, where the dude just walks. And if you are a really good runner, really good sprinter, really good marathon runner, you can evade him like you honestly can. And I think that's one of the places where he's only a man. He won't be able to sniff you out. Like maybe he can. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing a part where he was like, and then he like found him. But if you like disappear and he loses you, I think you're pretty good. So the reason I bring this up is there's some scenes where he's walking and they're running, and I'm like, they've got to be like making good ground here, and then they like trip or something, because that's kind of the cliche in these kind of movies. And you're like, okay, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So that was my thought.
I mean, there was the whole like I mean, obviously it's a very long sequence that doesn't start with Lindsay Wallace running away from him, but there is like her Lindsay Wallace is running away from him. And I did have that feeling of like, oh, if she just keeps running, she's going to get away.
Yeah. And then she does end up surviving, but she stops and you're like,
yeah, she stops and hides and you're like, wow, thanks for
not
nothing,
the move.
Lindsay.
That's
like,
not the move, man.
Don't do that.
You gotta keep running.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. That whole sequence when he's just like walking through the park and she's full sprinting. I'm like, oh, okay. Well,
You're fine, man. Yeah.
Yep.
It actually kind of killed the tension. Even when she stopped and hid, I was like, I think she's going to be okay. Like, so even something as simple as that, like, I think that's fair. I'm not a particularly fast person. I'm not. I don't exactly have a sprinter's body or anything. But if my life is on the line, I think that could be. I think I could be called upon to do some surprising things.
Yeah, it seems like. I mean, you don't have to be Usain Bolt to outwork the guys. So just keep a moderate jog. Maybe it's just him slowly following behind you.
It's all fun and games until Michael Myers suddenly goes down on all fours.
He's transcended.
He's beginning to believe.
He's becoming the animal. He's becoming Macho Man Randy Savage. Oh, brother. You're in for a Halloween Kills tonight. Shoot.
It's time to Halloween kill.
Awesome. Well, do we feel like we've kind of covered Michael the killer pretty well? Is there anything else we'd like to bring up?
Yeah, I don't know what else there is to say. Like,
yeah,
I mean, we've done 3 movies about the guy at this point, and like I said, there's a little more in this one to go off of, but yeah, I'm happy to move it along.
Right on. This next section, we usually like to talk about our victims, some of the choices they made, some that were good, some that were bad, what we would do differently if we were in their shoes. So why don't we kind of look at the victims and the characters of this movie and kind of give our thoughts on that?
I think this movie has a lot of competent people in it. I think the thing is, if we single out Laurie Strode, she's in the hospital. She is pretty unable to move around. She does get places in the hospital, but so I think her character is kind of in the sidelines in this movie, but the people who actually start facing Michael Myers, they do a pretty good job. It's just that Michael Myers is deadly. Like, I think the idea in this movie, they're like, we need to have a pack of people. We need to jump at this guy. Really good decision. I think that, like one of you guys said, we could have even had said in a previous episode it was the way to go, but it just didn't end up working. So and maybe I'm missing something, but I feel like more of the main people who get jumped, more of the main people that face up against him were pretty competent. There were some moments I was like, okay, we could have done better. The one we already talked about where she kind of like ran a little ways, looked around, and then she's like, I'm going to hide now, which was pretty dumb. There's also another one where a woman was like next to a door and she like was fumbling around and couldn't unlock it. And so she just gave up and sat there and just screamed like, what's her face from The Shining with the knife. Like that was pretty dumb. It was like, just give it a sec, unlock it and leave, because Michael Myers is taking his time. So there were a couple moments like that were kind of dumb, but
yeah, I feel like there's a thing that happens multiple times in this movie which really bothered me, where a character who has a gun stays a safe distance away from Michael Myers, tries to shoot him and misses. So then they step close enough to where he can move the gun, where he can reach out, grab the gun and be like, hey, don't shoot me. I mean, obviously the best example is like the one girl where he kicks the car door and she shoots herself in the face. Jesus Christ. I mean, it was awesome, so it was hard to complain about, but it was still like, oh, that sucks. But it happened with multiple characters. It happened with what's his face at the end, the scummy boyfriend from the last one. He has a shotgun.
Dylan, David, I don't remember.
Chad.
Any name works. You know what was so silly is I saw somebody post on Facebook that he had the most brutal death in the movie, and I was like, he had the most brutal did you watch the same movie I did? Somebody was like posting on Facebook like he deserved better, and I was like, what?
He got pretty good if we're comparing him to others.
And honestly, like in terms of his morality, he's like not squeaky clean. Like some of the others are a little more justifiable than him. I don't know.
This is just a little bit of a tangent, and I want to see if you guys agree. Like her, like I know they're in like deadly circumstances, but her being like, "Oh yeah, we're dating again," and I like that was just kind of a fun thing where he's like, "Well, I guess that last movie we kind of forgot about that." He like was kissing that other chick. That was just something I noticed where I was like, oh, I guess they're friends now. I think it made that death supposed to be more meaningful because you're like, oh, they're like, that's her boyfriend. And you're like, I don't care about that guy. He's not a faithful guy. So I don't care. So I don't know. That was just a thought I had.
I feel like it was like a partnership of convenience. It wasn't a confirmation of we're back together. It was just she wanted to kill Michael Myers. He offered a way to do it, so she was keen to partner up with him like I said, for convenience. But at the same time, like a person you broke up with earlier that night, watching them be killed brutally, like that's because this is the same night. So like I'm not gonna fault that moment for being like really horrible and emotional. But I do get what you're saying, which is like this movie in some places wanted us to forget that he like wanted us to act like, oh, he's the perfect loving doting boyfriend, and he wasn't.
Not that I wanted it to get into the drama, because that's something I didn't like about the first one, but the fact that there wasn't even like a mention or a conversation, I was like, okay, I guess we'll just forget that, which I'm fine with. But
and it's so interesting because there's like small stuff that's done really well, like even like the one dude's mom showing up to the hospital and like asking for him, like that was like heartbreaking. Just like the smallest level of continuity, and it was devastating
seeing his dead body there. And
so I don't know, it's like I do think I disagree with Adam that like all of the stuff in the first movie isn't a red herring so much as it's what the 78 one did, which is it's just teenagers living their life, and then their lives are interrupted by a killer. So it's not that like it's there to trick you into thinking like nothing's going to happen or anything like that. It's just you can't build that story around the teenagers thinking that they're going to get killed. You have to build a story around teenagers who are just living their lives. So I like that. All that stuff was okay for me. And I liked that this movie like put all that stuff on hold. Like Michael Myers is the priority, as he should be. But I do agree with you. I kind of wish that there'd been more effort for her and Cameron. That was his name. Cameron. When I wasn't thinking about it, it just came out of my mouth. Just had to be in
the moment. Yeah.
I do wish there had been a moment where Allison and Cameron had just had like a small scene where they had a small conversation to give a little bit of like, like, hey, this is going on, but also like at the end of this, because any conversation they have supposes that at the end of this movie, they're both okay, and makes it more dramatic when in fact, one of them is not okay. But all that being said, that's a real tangent, and I apologize. I think
it was my tangent. I'll take the blame.
But I really followed it. But anyway, I was really annoyed that no character understood the sweet spot of close enough to shoot him accurately, but not close enough that he can get the gun away from you. Yeah. I found that to be very frustrating, especially like I said, Cameron with the end with the shotgun, when he missed the first time and then took a step towards Mike. I was like, you're fucking kidding me. Like, you deserve what's about to happen, Cameron. That was a bonehead move. But at the same time, it's like, and I will say, I think the only full-blown character moment that I thought was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard. Bummer that it happened to veteran character actor Robert Longstreet, who's in this movie. So psyched to see him. Yep. We were talking about Midnight Mass before we started recording the episode, but yeah, Robert Longstreet from Hill House, Midnight Mass, incredible. He plays a supporting part in this movie, and for some reason, at the end of this movie, he and his posse show up to the Myers house, realizing that Michael's there, and he goes, "I'm gonna go in alone," and everybody's fine with it. Like, he doesn't call for backup. Nobody makes a plan. He goes in by himself. I think we briefly get a peek at his dead body. It's really dark and hard to see, but like just a truly stupid move. I would say that's the only character moment that for me was a full blown, like, what? No, come on. It was the classic, like, let's split up in a horror movie. Yeah. It was so dumb. I did not care for it. I think every other decision I can be like, all right, I get that. May not be personally what I would do, but it doesn't not make sense.
No.
That I say that's the only thing that for me was just a huge like, no, don't do that. I don't know. What about you, Lappin? Was there anything in particular that grabbed you as just a bonehead move?
Yeah. I feel like, I mean, obviously nobody in this movie is like a trained Navy SEAL or anything like that, but I feel
what
like
are you talking about? Tommy Doyle. Tommy Doyle is a trained I almost said African American Marine, which is not true.
Absolutely.
Neither one of those
lie.
are true.
The problem with improvising is sometimes you don't know what's coming out of your mouth. And then you realize what's coming out of your mouth, and it's like, why did I say that?
I don't even know. That was just pure reaction. What am I doing? But yeah, I guess the thing that really stands out to me in the crowd is there's way too long where it's like, just pop the dude in the head and let's be over with it. Like, he's on the ground. I don't know. Too many times it's like people kind of are like, yeah, 3/4 of the way we did really good, but then we're just going to savor it for some reason because Michael needs to live for the next movie. So
that was that was something I loved about Hawkins in the first movie is he hit him with the car and then was like, let me just shoot him in the head.
Mm-hmm.
And in this movie, the crowd beats him down. And when comes time to deliver the death blow, it's not a gun. They're like, Tommy, do it with the bat.
I know. It's like, come on, guys.
Just use a gun.
Yep.
This is as good an opening as you're going to get.
Mm-hmm. So I would say that, and I don't know, like, just double team the guy. I don't know, triple team the dude. Like,
Eiffel Tower that dude.
Exactly. Yes.
We're running a train on that bad boy. Ever seen Human Centipede?
It's like trying to remember what it is in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers when they join up.
They do the Human Centipede in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Yeah, that's how they get their Zords together, to make one big Zord. It's just that with all the community. So it's like, even then, I don't know if it's enough to finish Michael. It's like,
then, can he be stopped?
Who knows? But I think that was kind of my biggest thing that stood out to me. And plus, I just wanted to say this. This is just one thing where it's like, the firefighters at the beginning, like firefighters in real life, like are pretty physically capable people. And for him to just be like, yeah, I'm just going to mow through no, like you have to meet certain physical requirements in order to be a firefighter. So it's kind of like him just like, let me just mosey on through these guys, was a little bit like, probably not. But those are kind of just the two things that stood out to me that haven't already been said. So that's my piece.
I kind of alluded to this, but people saying that like the firefighter beginning was dumb. I do sympathize with that because like it kind of belittles this idea that Laurie Strode has had 40 years to make a plan, but apparently overlooked the fact that the fire brigade shows up if your house is on fire. Like that, like I'm fine with it. Like I said, oftentimes the simplest solution in a movie is the one that's honestly the best. And I think in this case, I can't imagine a much better solution to that problem than just firefighters show up and accidentally like set them loose. Like, that's fine.
Yeah.
But it is kind of a bummer from the perspective of like, she had 40 years to think about this and somehow didn't think, what if somebody tries to put out the fire?
Yeah. Oh man. But yeah, is there anything else as far as like character choices or the victims themselves that we feel like we want to bring up or talk about?
Yeah, I have one last thing. There is a very lack of concern in this movie for protecting the high school age kids from Michael Myers. The one mom is like, don't go. But then every other adult is like, oh, 2 high school age kids, let's do it. And I get that, I don't know. It's kind of the mob mentality and they're like, they're old enough and they want to help. But that dude, especially with his son, he didn't even think once like, even like, I don't know, maybe coming, but then when they get to that place where they see all these dead people who were freshly killed, he's like, okay, I'm taking you home, man. I don't know. So to me, that was kind of weird. And I feel like in a realistic situation, I don't know, depending on the family, maybe, but I just noticed that in this movie. It's like, those are high school kids. And I feel like there should be a little bit more concern to be like, hey, how about you guys like not do that? So
yeah, I will call out one more thing, which is I mean, we're deep in a spoiler territory at this point, but the last kill of the movie is Karen Strode. And I got to be honest, the entire time she's walking back into the house, back up to that window, internally, I'm like, what? Why?
Right.
What do you care? You and your daughter should want to be as far away from that house as you can possibly be. Why on earth would you want to be up there right now? And I get that the movie's like, she wants to know what he saw up there. It's like, she knows what he saw up there. Hawkins told you he goes up there to look at the see his reflection in the window. Like, you were there when he said that. So I was just like, in terms of decisions, after Karen stabs him and walks away, apparently not feeling the need to double tap. If I were in her shoes, grab your daughter and go. Just get the fuck away from that house. Go back to the hospital. Meet up with Granny, and then you guys just like be a family for a little bit and be away from Michael Myers. That's gonna feel better. You're gonna feel better being away from Michael Myers. So yeah, I feel like the two dumbest decisions in this movie for me were at the very end, which is what's his name, Lonnie, Robert Longstreet's character,
Lonnie,
going, hey, I'll go in by myself. And then Karen Strode, for whatever reason, being so overcome with curiosity, she has to go up and look through the same window that Michael did. So yeah, I feel like in terms of decisions, those are the ones that I'm like, nah, dude, don't care for it. It's dumb. Get it out of here.
Yep. Alrighty. So now that we've assessed our victims, we're getting into the championship rounds. We're getting right down to it. Firstly, we kind of see if we can make final boy status, which is pretty much you almost make it to the end. You almost make it through the entire horror movie, but then you end up getting killed. You're the second person to get killed, second to last person to get killed. So yeah, what do we think, gentlemen?
You're the Karen Strode of this movie.
You're the Karen. You're just Karen, you know. But yeah, guys, what do we think? Do we think we give ourselves final girl status, and if so, how? Excuse me, final boy status.
Lanson does not care about final boy status.
Get it out of here. If it ain't the championship belt, I don't care.
He doesn't care about the opening act. He's here for the main stage show.
I'm here for the entree. Forget the appetizer. Anyway, sorry. Final boy status.
Adam, what do you think?
I think I would die. And I don't think I'd make final boy status. I think he would come and I'd be in my house and I'd be trying to watch a movie with my beautiful significant other and smoke some weed and have a good time. And yeah, I think you would.
It's a classic evening with Adam Bone, by the way.
Yeah, that's just what it is.
Good times.
Also, what those two characters did in this movie, and I was watching that, I was like, yeah, it looks like a nice Halloween night. Anyways, no, yeah, I think I would just be. I think I would just be in the path, and I'd get killed. So, and I don't think I'd survive. I'm keeping it simple, this movie, guys.
Keeping it simple, nice. Mr. Luke, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna give myself final boy status in this for two reasons. One, I don't feel the need to hunt Michael Myers down. So when word gets out that posses are forming, I would say, hey, good for you guys. That's not for me. Two, I am a coward. And if I don't have to confront Michael Myers, I don't want to. So based on the fact that both times he's escaped from the mental institution, he came back to Haddonfield, I would probably just jump in my car and go to not Haddonfield. Funny story. I don't know if you guys know about this. Haddonfield is actually a tiny percentage of the United States. What? And I think you'll find that the larger percentage of the United States is not Haddonfield. So I would just go ahead and go to, I don't know, what's in Illinois? Chicago. I just go to Chicago. I'll go watch some improv.
Oh yeah.
And get killed in a different way by those improv comedians killing it. So yeah, no, I would just skip town. So I'm gonna give myself final boy status by just skipping town.
Nice. I think mine's pretty similar. I would give myself final boy status, but if I knew that there was like a town where this serious killing happened, I'd probably be like, I'm probably not. A, if I was raised there, I'm probably gonna move out of there. Or B, I'm not gonna buy a house and live there. Like, yeah, and he killed his sister and a bunch of teenagers. Okay, cool. What's Iowa like? What's the housing market out there like?
Got to give Iowa a try. That's for any fans of Hello Dolly.
I always thought that Harold Hill was kind of like Michael Myers.
Harold Hill is Michael Myers, Adam. It's an allegory.
Dang.
Science.
Well, you got trouble, my friends.
Right here in
top-
Haddonfield.
Over top of the Halloween theme.
Just dancing and singing while he's slashing throats and killing people. That would be amazing.
I'd see that musical.
I'd see it. All right. Now, this is for all the marbles. This is final girl status, where you make it through the entire horror movie, you survive, you're off to the races. You make it. So, Adam is no longer with us in this movie, but we appreciate him anyway.
Unless do you not have final boy status, but you do have final girl status?
You know what? That would be amazing if you do. No pressure, but that would be amazing.
Here's what I'll say. I'm not surviving this movie.
Okay.
However, I don't know. Maybe I'll leave this up to you guys and you guys can rank where this puts me.
Mhm.
But I think what I would do is I would join the mob and I would go in by myself, like the guy did at the end, because I think that's a really awful decision. Except what Michael Myers doesn't know is I have a landmine just on my chest, duct tape wrapped around, and that guy comes towards me, and the last thing that guy expects is a nice loving hug from his victim. Man has been torn away from any sort of affection, and he'll take a moment and then he'll explode and his guts will go everywhere, and that'll be the end. So I mean, I'm gonna die, but maybe that, I don't know.
Might
That
as well
might
go
put me
out on
somewhere.
your shield. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, dude. I like it.
Pretty good. I'm into it.
Oh man, I like it. What about you, Mr. Luke? What do you think about final girl status?
Well, I'll give you a serious answer.
Sweet.
And then if you'd like, with these movies, it seems like all three of us have been coming up with fun scenarios in which we do best Michael Myers. Adam has just presented his. I'll give my serious answer, which is yes, I survived this movie because, I skipped town.
Yep.
I'm at an improv show in Chicago. I'm not much worried about Michael Myers. But we can also circle back to a fun answer if you would like.
Heck yeah. Let's hear it.
I'd
Well,
love to hear that.
so here's where I'm at. He always goes back to Haddonfield. We know that he goes back to his house in Haddonfield. So what happens, what I don't tell anybody, is during my extensive training with the Navy SEALs as an
yes.
African American, I learn a lot about ordnance. I get a lot of ordnance training, and I just go ahead and bury a pretty large nuclear bomb. It is nuclear, and that I made sure. I made sure that it was.
I
Had the
checked
little
it.
beeper on it. It was like beep beep beep. Oh, that's
Yeah, yeah,
nuclear.
yeah. I shipped it in from Russia. These Alexander Lukashenko really hooked me up. And I
Putin approved
I go
sticker
ahead-
on it.
go
Old
ahead and I
Belarus.
bury it directly. I go ahead and I bury it directly underneath the Myers house. I show up. I'm like, hey, I'm a plumber. I say something more convincing than that, and then I just tunnel down under the house, leave a full nuclear bomb there. At this point, anybody who stays in Haddonfield, they've chosen their fate. They've decided to be sheeple, lemmings lining up for the slaughter. And as soon as I'm in Chicago, a safe distance away, I just go ahead and detonate. And I am the final girl. Although I am a final girl with a higher body count than Michael Myers ever had.
You are probably, well, not that it would wipe out the whole world, but like definitely in Illinois, you would be the final girl.
No, not all of Illinois, because I'm clearly fine. I'm in Chicago. But yeah, I'm the final girl, but at what cost? As we always say.
Oh,
How about you, Lappin? Are you going down in the championship round? How do you see this shaking out?
I'm taking the belt. And let me tell you how. I'm taking his mask and I'm wearing it because you see, Michael Myers' true power comes from his mask. That's why he doesn't want to take it off. So in a very Santa Claus,
it's why he wears it when he works out.
Exactly. Besides that, it'd be like an old decrepit arthritic man. It's the mask. So I would just take that and like it would be, I guess it would be kind of be, as we've been referencing Superman, it reminds me of like the Batman versus Superman fight where Superman gets the kryptonite and then Batman catches the punch. It'd be kind of like that. I'd catch one of his punches. He'd be like, I'm like, oh yeah, it's your turn, big boy. And then, yeah, just go full, I don't know, invincible when his dad just beats the crap out of him. Just probably do that to Michael.
So
yeah.
So this in your version of events, is this a universe like the Santa Claus starring Tim Allen, where you put on his clothes, you inherit his powers?
Yes. And I become Michael Myers. My thirst, my thirst to kill is there and I have to satisfy that. So I end up just and that's it,
The final girl, but at what cost?
Bloodlust stops with me. So yeah, it's all for the gains, man. All for the gains is all I got to say about that.
All for those gains in the gym,
Yeah.
Do what you got to do to kill those weights.
And kill that man. Oh, goodness. Well, guys, this has been another episode of Final Boy Status. It's always so fun to get together and just goof around and talk about horror movies. We appreciate you guys like tuning in and listening. Honestly, the support has always been great. So thank you guys for that. Is there anything before we wrap up that we want to plug? Anything we want to make our audience aware of?
I don't have anything, but keep watching this show.
Yeah.
If you haven't watched all the episodes, we have a pretty good backlog of episodes that you can check out. We had this conversation right before this episode. So correct me if I'm wrong, but our next episode is going to be the first, is It, whatever year the newest It came out. So
2017, I think.
2017, It is going to be the next episode. So if you're watching with us, go ahead in between, watch that one, check it out, have a good time with it, and let us know if you could survive it.
Yeah, I'm excited. What's going on with me personally? Okay, I'm working on a short film. I don't think it'll be out in time for Halloween, but it's kind of a short, spooky film. We're deep in post-production. It's called The Girl Walks Alone. Excited to work on it. Yeah, I'm having a good time with that. This feels weirdly like it's a snake eating its own tail. But I was recently on an episode of the podcast Just Joshin'. And I went on there actually to talk about this show and talk about horror. But we really got into like everything. It was a very heady intellectual conversation. So yeah, it was like a 2-hour long interview. So if you guys are interested in my general thoughts and you want to hear me talk about horror and just life, the universe, beliefs, all of that crazy stuff, you can track down that episode if you'd like. A very in-depth conversation with me. So yeah, that's what's going on with me. Or as always, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Luke Haueter, LukeHaueter.
Very nice. Well, everybody, stay safe. Have a happy Halloween, and we will catch you next time.
This has been an Underqualified Idiocracy media production, produced by Lanson Lappin, Adam Bone, and Luke Haueter. Theme music for the episode was written by Rachel Robison. You can hear more of Rachel's music at rachelrobinsonmusic.com. You can also find her on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by searching at Robel Racheson. Artwork for the YouTube version of this podcast was created by Trinity Rodriguez. You can follow her on Twitter by searching at InstrinBaby to see more of her work. This podcast was recorded in Underqualified Studios and edited by Luke Haueter, with special thanks to Mike Fuchs for providing audio assistance. The illustrious voice acting providing the intro and outro of this episode is Shane Alvey of the Paradox Files voice acting. You can explore more of his work on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by searching at The Paradox Files.